The harder you chase happiness, the further it runs. Because peace was never meant to be pursued, only allowed. Let us examine closely the trap of chasing happiness. We're living in an age obsessed with happiness. Everywhere you turn, social media, self-help books, corporate culture, there's a relentless message. Be happier, do more, feel better. It sounds harmless, even noble. But beneath this polished narrative lies a quiet psychological trap. The moment happiness becomes a goal, it transforms into a standard. And standards create measurement. Measurement creates judgment. Suddenly, you're no longer living, you're evaluating. Am I happy enough? Why don't I feel as good as I should? What's wrong with me? This is where the paradox begins. Research shows that the more people actively pursue happiness, the more likely they are to feel disappointed when they don't achieve it. That disappointment doesn't just fade, it compounds. Because now you're not only unhappy, you're failing at being happy. It's a double loss. Robert Greene often emphasizes how human nature is driven by illusion, the need to believe in narratives that promise control over uncertainty. Happiness becomes one of those illusions. We believe if we optimize enough, habits, routines, productivity hacks, we can engineer a permanent emotional high. But emotions were never designed to be permanent. In fact, the attempt to eliminate discomfort strips life of its natural rhythm. Negative emotions, frustration, sadness, anxiety, aren't flaws in the system. They are the system. They guide attention, sharpen perception, and prepare us for reality. When you suppress them in pursuit of constant happiness, you don't become better, you become blind. So the real question isn't, why aren't I happy? It's, why do I believe I should be all the time? Because that belief is the beginning of your misery.
We've been conditioned to believe that more happiness is always better, but reality is far more nuanced and far more dangerous. Happiness, like any emotional state, has a threshold. Beyond a certain point, it stops being beneficial and starts becoming dysfunctional. Studies show that extremely high levels of positive emotion can lead to poor decision-making, increased risk-taking, and even a neglect of real threats. Think about that. When you're too happy, too comfortable, you stop questioning, you stop analyzing, you stop preparing. Your mind shifts into a passive state, assuming everything is fine, even when it isn't. This is why people in states of extreme positivity can become reckless, financially, socially, even physically. They're not grounded in reality, they're floating above it. Robert Greene would describe this as a loss of strategic awareness. You become emotionally intoxicated, and intoxicated people make mistakes. But there's something even deeper happening here. Excessive happiness often comes at the cost of emotional range. When you reject negative emotions entirely, you lose critical psychological tools. Fear sharpens your instincts. Anger fuels action. Sadness deepens reflection. Without them, you become emotionally one-dimensional, and one-dimensional people are easy to manipulate. Even worse, the absence of negative emotion has been linked to antisocial behavior in extreme cases. When individuals lack fear, guilt, or empathy, they lose their internal brakes that regulate behavior. So the goal isn't to maximize happiness. The goal is balance. Because a life of constant happiness isn't a sign of success, it's often a sign of disconnection from reality.
So, why does the pursuit itself make you miserable? Here's the cruel irony.
The very act of chasing happiness is what keeps you from experiencing it. Why? Because pursuit creates pressure. The moment you decide, I need to be happy, you create an expectation. And expectations reshape perception. Now, every moment is filtered through a question. Does this make me happy enough? If the answer is no, you feel lacking. Even in objectively positive situations, this mechanism backfires. Imagine being at a celebration, a birthday, a party, a milestone moment. Instead of being present, your mind evaluates, shouldn't I feel better than this? And when you don't, disappointment creeps in. Research confirms this paradox. When people are primed to value happiness more, they actually feel worse, especially in situations where happiness is expected. Why? Because they become hyper-aware of the gap between expectation and reality. That gap is suffering. Robert Greene often warns against self-consciousness, because once you become overly aware of yourself, you lose your natural flow. The same applies here. The pursuit of happiness turns you inward in the worst way possible, into constant self-monitoring. You stop living. You start observing yourself living. And observation kills experience. Even worse, this pursuit can isolate you. When happiness becomes a personal project, relationships become secondary. You begin to prioritize your internal state over genuine connection. Ironically, this leads to loneliness, the very thing happiness was supposed to cure. So what's the alternative? Stop chasing. Because happiness isn't something you extract from life, it's something that emerges when you stop interfering with it. If chasing happiness leads to misery, what should you pursue instead? The answer is counterintuitive. Nothing. Or more precisely, presence. Peace is not the absence of discomfort. It's the absence of resistance. Instead of trying to maximize positive emotions, you allow the full spectrum of experience. You stop labeling feelings as good or bad. You stop trying to fix every internal fluctuation. And in that surrender, something unexpected happens. The noise quiets. Research shows that accepting negative emotions, rather than suppressing them, leads to greater long-term well-being and lower levels of anxiety and depression. Not because life becomes easier, but because you stop fighting it. This is where Greene's philosophy aligns with deeper psychological truths. True power comes from self-mastery, not control over external outcomes, but control over your reactions. When you no longer need to feel happy, you become free. Free from comparison, free from expectation, free from the endless cycle of chasing and failing. And, paradoxically, this is when a quieter, more stable form of happiness begins to appear. Not the loud, dopamine-driven highs we've been conditioned to chase, but something deeper. A grounded sense of alignment, a calm awareness, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. This is the shift from happiness as a goal to peace as a foundation. Because happiness is fleeting, but peace is sustainable.
If this conversation gave you something to think about, a new perspective, or even a small sense of clarity, then this channel is for you. Consider joining this growing community by subscribing and leave a like on the video so more people searching for answers can find these ideas too. Your support keeps these conversations alive. Until the next video, keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep pondering life's journeys.